Hello again. This week we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about relationships, just carrying on from what we did last time. And I want to touch on something that I mentioned last time, which was how we act as individuals affects our interactions with other people and all of our relationships. Relationships are all about how we are as much as we believe other people are. It's all about us. A really useful way of understanding ourselves and our behaviour in relationships is to remind ourselves of the circle of control, where we know that the only things under our control are our thoughts and our actions, what we do with the thoughts that we have and how we act on them. Now, Becca's going to put up this diagram, this blue circle diagram. We've used it in the past. And it's a brilliant diagram because it shows us again what isn't our responsibility and what is our responsibility. My responsibility is my words, my behavior, my actions, my efforts, my mistakes, my ideas, and any consequences of my actions. So that's where my responsibility lies. And what isn't my responsibility is other people's stuff, okay? So other people's words, other people's mistakes. I mean, we come into conflict with all the stuff that other people do, but ultimately the responsibility for how we feel falls back onto us. Now, Becca's going to take that diagram down when I just show you another thing that I've tried to make it even clearer for you. So just if you keep it simple, if we remember the things under our control are our thoughts and our actions, and the things that aren't under our control are what people think of us, how other people behave, how rude other people are, that's a big one, other people's habits, how well other people listen to us. We've got no control over how well they do that, and what our partner fears or finds stressful. Even though we're involved with that, we haven't got any control over what they find fearful or stressful. So we haven't got as much control over other people's feelings as we'd like to think we have. Okay, so this isn't to deny that some other people feel that at the deepest level that their controlling behaviour keeps them safe and keeps their lives under control. But ultimately, if you find yourself trying to control relationships, if you come back to knowing that it's only your thoughts and actions that you can control, then you may be able to be less controlling in relationships. CBT teaches us that people react differently to similar events, and so that even within a close couple, there can be a big difference in how we each see things. If I asked you what makes you happy or sad, you'd most likely tell me that an event or a situation with someone else has made you feel bad, or that an event has made you feel good. We all think it's the external world, the outside situations that are making us feel good or bad. But actually, if you have a closer look at that, these events and life situations don't produce the same emotional state in everyone. Some of us may be completely crushed with some situations, while others of us cope really well. Say we get some bad news, or we get a diagnosis sometimes from a GP of something. Some of us can take it on the chin and take it really well, and other of us just find it really hard and really hurtful. So everything is neutral out there, but how we react to it all comes from our thinking. So when two people react differently to an event, it's because they have different thinking about it. It's as simple as that. They each draw their own conclusions about it. It's really useful to bear that in mind in relationships, because if two people can have very different thoughts about each other and about how each other should be behaving, then that often causes conflict in a relationship. So if we can only control our thoughts and actions, and we are likely to see things differently or have different emotional reactions, then how do we have harmonious relationships? Well, if we understand that the responsibility for a good relationship with anyone lies at our door, then we're on the way to acting and behaving in ways that help us get on with others. If we wait for others to do or say what we want them to do, then we could spend a lot of time waiting for other people to behave them as we want them to, and it's just not going to happen. If we disagree with other people over things, then we start to doubt ourselves or get defensive. And all in all, we start to have a lot of insecure thinking, and we forget that we can only control our own thoughts about something. We forget that other people may be seeing things differently, and before we know it, our mood has slumped and our relationships. We can only control how we feel. Relationships start with two people with a head full of thoughts, usually. We've got a little diagram here that Becca's going to put up now. Basically, this diagram is just to show you that we live in separate realities in our own heads. There's the external world out there, and then we're living in these worlds of our own making. We're doing all our own thinking, all our own responding, all based on our own childhood conditioning, things we've learned, things we need and want. And it all comes out. And those two heads, full of the separate thinking, they meet, and oftentimes they go on really well, and other times they just clash because the thinking is so different. So if we take that drawing away now, I was going to tell you about a couple actually that I came to work with at one point. Sue and Jack, they were called, and they came to talk to me about the relationship, and they'd been getting on well for 6 months. Then one day, Sue woke up in a really low mood, and Sue said, tends to get critical when she's in a low mood. That's her habit. And she started criticizing Jack for not doing enough housework and for leaving his stuff everywhere. So it's a common thing in couples. And Jack, he didn't get it. He gets really insecure because he's being criticized. As soon as he was being criticized, he started getting really defensive. So his mood dropped as well. Then they both started to feel really low. And then before you knew it, they began to question whether they were right for each other. So what has happened is they've brought out the worst in each other. Susan has been critical and allowed that to affect her mood, and Sue and Jack's minds were both full of low mood thinking. And CBT says that instead of believing that they're not compatible, so instead of them both sitting down with me and saying, oh, we're not compatible because he leaves his stuff everywhere and she criticizes me, we say, okay, what's really going on here? Let's look upstream. So looking upstream means let's look at the cause in both our heads of where this problem's come from. And this problem has come from our insecure thinking separately in our two minds, okay? Susan had annoyed thinking and Jack had insecure thinking, and the both thinking got projected out, and then they both heads clashed, and before you knew it, they were both in a low mood. So focusing on maintaining our own circle of control and realizing that our points of view about messy stuff are different, they're very different. So let's keep looking upstream. It's the difference in thinking about the mess that has caused the issue and not the mess. I mean, it's a small example of a couple who came to see me, but for them, it was just really useful to see that it was how they were perceiving it. It was each other's perception of the event that was causing the problem. So remember to check out with yourself before you start thinking that it's other people that are the problem, that's often just the way you're seeing it. So if you can remember that it's not your responsibility, other people's ideas and opinions aren't your responsibility. Your responsibility is how you think, how you feel and behave. And it'll make a huge difference really when you start taking more responsibility for your own stuff, because then you're not bringing it into relationships with other people. Your relationships start to flow a lot easier. There's a whole section on this on Silver Cloud, as usual, to back up what I've been saying. So you can use the program and go into Silver Cloud and check out the section on relationships and communication. Well, thanks very much for listening today, and we'll come back to you again with another topic next time. Thank you.